Hi, everyone. I'm Marian Mead, Chair of Mental Health Professionals Ottawa. We're a volunteer organization serving the mental health professionals community through cost-effective, quality personal development and connection through networking and events. We've been doing this for close to 40 years. Today, I'm delighted to be interviewing Laurie-Anne Muldoon, our December 9th facilitator for her workshop on internal family systems with a focus on birthing families. Welcome, Laurie-Anne. It's just a real delight to have you here with me today.
Thank you, Miriam. Thanks for inviting me.
hmm Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Laurie-Anne Muldoon. I'm a registered social worker in Ottawa. I've been practicing social work for about 19 years now. I've been in private practice for almost 11 years now. And I have a sort of individual counseling practice that focuses quite a bit on parents, specifically birthing parents, most times birthing parents. Yeah.
Wow. How was it? I know you have a lot of interest, but I just through our conversations over the years, I know that parenting is a really favorite special topic for you. How was it that you got interested in birthing parents and specifically using IFS in your work with them?
Hmm. I actually just spent a little bit of time working with birthing parents before I was a social worker. When I was a registered nurse, I'd worked in public health for a little while and did the home visits with
Mm.
parents to help with breastfeeding. And so that was
Ah,
really kind of I think my very first time really working with parents.
mm-hmm.
Later on, I became interested again when I had my own son. And I had a pretty difficult transition to parenting myself. And I
Aha.
was quite surprised at it felt at the time, the lack of really mental health support for new mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a lot of my own healing at that time. And then I had this, really wanting to help other mothers, other parents going through this,
For sure.
similar to what I had went through. So started to do a lot more training in the US and Canada around perinatal mental health. And then in 2021, I attended a workshop, very brief introduction to IFS, and it really, really intrigued me. I thought
Oh,
this
cool.
is a really interesting approach. It's a very non-pathologizing approach.
Love it.
And so I think that's what really drew me in. And so I started to get more training in the US and in Canada. And yeah, it's really become quite a big part of my practice, working with all my clients, but in particular with mothers and fathers and all parents, all kinds of parents.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I really love the non-pathologizing part. So in IFS, I know that the talk is about parts or the conversation is about parts. Are there some parts that commonly show up for birthing parents?
Yeah, I would say, although each person is very individual, I would say that there are sort of thematically common parts that often come up. I would say there's often anxious or panicky parts,
Mm.
often self-critical parts,
Mm-hmm.
often guilty parts,
Yeah.
often perfectionistic parts.
They're all ringing bells from back in the
Yeah.
day.
And mama bear parts, right? There's these mama bear
Mm.
parts. I would say I see a
Yes.
lot of parts that are like very resentful, of some of the things, some of the tasks that get taken on. And
Hmm.
I think it's important to mention that because motherhood and parenting often get associated with bliss and joy. And although those things are very true, I think there's a whole other parts that often get missed. And I think that that's sort of part of the reason that I love bringing those parts to light because I know that they're there, but they're oftentimes when clients are coming in and speaking about their anxious parts or speaking about their perfectionistic parts, it's really one of the only opportunities they really get to voice those parts of themselves because it's often parts that get very shamed or
Hmm.
um, made not to feel good out in the broader world or in the family context or extended family context. So yeah, I say those are very, very common ones that I encounter. And even though they're like common ones, there's all sorts of little particularities about these parts that really are influenced by the mother's, own personal life history. So though that they're common, I would say that I'm still always learning about these parts and how specific they are to the individual that I have sitting in front of me. So,
Absolutely. And I used to think that someone needed to write a book, and maybe they have, about the myth of motherhood. I can relate so much to what you're saying, right? About it's just going to be total bliss. But there's more to it than that, for sure.
mhm.
Um, can you share a specific situation in which parts work helped a birthing parent in a big way?
Yeah. Mm. I would say that something I often see um, come up is the ways in which, so all parts are well intentioned. And so
Hmm.
oftentimes there are anxious parts. I think it's part of that that's very natural and normal to be kind of having this new role. There
Yeah.
is no handbook
Yes.
to motherhood.
Yeah.
I often kind of joke with mothers and I say like you're kind of building the plane as you're flying it. That's what it
That's
feels like. There's
yeah.
no PhD, there's no course that you get in motherhood, and every child is different, of course. And
Hmm.
so oftentimes when I'm kind of getting underneath like the anxiety or the anxious parts, 100% of the time, I can say that pretty confidently. 100% of the time, it's very well intentioned and it's often a result of, mothers just really trying to do the best they can.
Hmm.
We're often bombarded with all kinds of messages about what it is, what it looks like to be a good mother. And I think at the heart of it, that anxiety is really kind of a product of really just trying to do the best job that they can do with the
Hmm.
resources they have at their disposal. So the anxiousness kind of comes from a good place. Really, I say that's kind of like that's the most common thing that I see. Sort of women realizing that they have this part. It's not about getting rid of the part. It's more about getting a
Hmm.
relationship with this part and seeing the good intent behind what it's trying to do for you as you're adjusting to this new world.
I like that. Thank you. Um, to add on to that, a part two question is, so much is going on in the lives of the birthing parents. I mean, you've got that identity change, you've got that relationship change with the couple, and then even physical changes. So, how does IFS help to manage all of that complexity?
Um, there's sort of a rule, I guess, or like a truth in internal family systems, which is the more you resist, the more it persists.
Hmm. Yes.
And so often I notice, as we're starting to name and acknowledge the various parts in mothers that are at play and are being recalibrated or readjusted after this massive life transition, that just, almost like getting to know, hearing and seeing and really understanding what's at the heart of each of these parts that over time, you're seeing that these parts are actually really wonderful, even though on the surface they, some might say that they're not beneficial or good. And sometimes I'll joke with mothers and I'll say, yeah, but if you didn't have any anxiety and you had apathy,
That's
that
it.
might not be so good either.
That's it.
And I sort of say, from a even just from a neurological point of view, like anxiety gives you energy, it keeps you motivated,
Yes.
it gets you. And so sometimes, it's more you have anxiety, you probably maybe have a little bit, it's working too, this part, I often say it like this part is just working way too hard. And so just the very fact
Yeah.
of getting to know that part, the fact of understanding its true intention, allows a little bit of space so that, and creating some ambivalence there, right? So there's all of these parts, anxious ones, mama bear ones, resentful ones, all like there's a system at work here. And they're all have good intentions. And it's more about kind of having a relationship with those parts, seeing the good in them, and also creating more harmony with those parts. And so that you're able to sort of not deny or exclude them or, disown them, but more that you're sort of using them and really kind of seeing that they can do something for you. And creating sort of more, I guess, peace inside, so that it's not feeling quite so intense or quite so unmanageable or overwhelming in the moment. And this is like an ongoing process. It's not sort of like a one and done.
Yes. Yes.
But sometimes when there's like a new challenge, sometimes I'll invite, parts to sort of, okay, so what have we learned about how you can manage a crisis, and does this apply to this situation, and how are we going to sort of really kind of almost like use the best of each of these parts to get through this crisis. So I think just having that space to really hear them out and to really sort of try to create more cohesiveness between them, it can be helpful for the person.
This all sounds very soothing. I wish you and I were together back in the day. I could have used your support big time. Um, Here's my next question. What do you find therapists sometimes miss or maybe misunderstand when they're working with perinatal clients through an IFS lens?
Well, I think if you haven't worked with perinatal clients very long, um, they can be quite intense and
Mhm.
surprising because oftentimes um, parents can very much put on this facade on the outside that everything is under control, and
Uh-huh.
they often don't come into your office, bedraggled and looking frumpy. They often come
Right.
into your office looking quite put together.
Uh-huh.
And when you start to really sort of provide a safe space and to really kind of offer this like non-judgment and compassion towards them, they can really reveal some pretty intense experiences of
Mhm.
motherhood. And I think that I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, but I think you could take it as like alarm bells going off, about her safety, about the safety of her child. And that's maybe the case. But I would say that I think that the the kind of benefit to you know, using IFS, but also really understanding the population and seeing how much of this comes from a really good place. And actually, there's a lot of wisdom that's often communicated in those parts.
Hmm.
So really working with that rather than seeing this as a problem, or it is a problem in the sense that it's really difficult for that person in the moment. But I
Yes.
think therapists can really be, I remember going to a training in the States a number of years ago. A Karen Kleiman is a big name in perinatal mental health in Pennsylvania in the States, and doing a course with her. And she said one time she went on vacation and she had a colleague who doesn't really work in perinatal mental health kind of cover for her. And she came back from holidays, and this therapist was like, "What in the like, this is like, wow, I had no idea, right?" But like, so
Mm,
I think that's something that often kind of surprises, because I think, and it has to do with this, what you resist persists dynamic, right? Which is, out in the world, it's very hard for mothers to be fully, completely honest and open about how they're really feeling.
yeah.
And so they bottle a lot of it up. And
Yes.
so as you're working with a new mom, sometimes, you're sort of getting like almost like a backlog of things that they've been kind of holding inside, which feels really intense, to the therapist. And I
Hmm.
think it's important to sort of, for therapists to do their own work around mothering and parenthood, so they
Yes.
can really kind of hold space, for the parents they're helping.
Oh, wow. That's so, everything you're saying really, really resonates. I've got one last question for you, Laurie-Anne, and that
Mhm.
is, what's the one thing that you hope participants will take away from your workshop?
Um, I am hoping that the presentation opens up some perspective on, just reframing, I guess, this perinatal period, because
Mm,
it is pretty particular. And I think, the work that I'm going to be sharing from the US, specifically related to IFS in the perinatal period, really helps to kind of illuminate, even from a like neuroscience point of view, like what's happening and why that is. And so I'm really hoping that it'll just really reframe, um, this period in terms of, just a really big transition, and like why that is, neurologically speaking, but from a parts perspective as well, just so that it's like it's understood a bit more, and not maybe, um, yeah, that there's just some understanding. I think sometimes when you're holding a framework, or you're holding a conceptualization of something, it can help to sort of illuminate what's going on, and sort of offer some ways of kind of moving through that. And I do want to sort of offer some, even if you're not IFS trained, some places to start, maybe some
yeah.
places to just to kind of open yourself up to this idea that you don't need to necessarily need to know the protocol, or need to know this particular approach in a lot of detail, but you can actually start to sort of, learn how to really develop that rapport, really kind of understand parts from a perinatal perspective. And sometimes just like having that, clients can feel that and feel that you're understanding them a bit better, and that helps to, and as we know, rapport is everything.
Yes,
Or nearly everything. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
mhm.
Wow. I want you to know that like I'm super excited about attending your workshop, and I feel like I could just feel the soothing through the screen just as you're talking about it. And so I'm really looking forward to it, and I know we've got quite a few people already signed up
Good.
to attend.
Excellent.
So thank you so much,
You're very
and I look
welcome.
forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay. Thanks,
See you.
Marianne.
Thank you. Bye.